Today, I'm continuing painting on a really big canvas. This is part 2 of my Giant Oyster Collage series, and I'm going to show you some techniques for building up a sumptuous background, as well as introducing you to a brand new to me material. I'm Jackie Bernardi, and welcome to my studio. Welcome back to the Giant Oyster Project. If you haven't been here before, I've been working on this and ideating on it for about a year now. And a few weeks ago, I started in the background, those blues that you can see there. I do have a video on how I did that, and I'll link it in the description. But right now, all I'm doing is trying to activate the surface of this dry paint. I'm just taking some black and white charcoal and making some marks. I'm handwriting here. It's nothing terribly exciting, just writing some words that mean something to me and this project as a whole. More than anything, it's just to get my brain into creativity mode and get my hands moving. If all of this gets covered up, I'll be completely fine with that. It's just to get started and to give me time to think. Now that little piece of paper over to the left, that was actually the paper that was underneath the work I did a couple weeks ago for the translucent papers video. It's what was left on the table when I removed all the wet papers, and I loved it so much for the color and inspiration that I'm keeping it to the side while I work. There's a quality about it that I love. Now today I'm starting with fluorescent pink fluid acrylic. I love this color. I don't know why I've never had this in my stash before, but I am totally in love with it. I have a feeling it's going to show up quite a bit in each oyster piece. Now I'm hitting it with some water from a continuous spray bottle to thin it out and to get some drips going. I always love what water does when you put it up against charcoal. It does this beautiful shimmery thing, and I absolutely adore it. And while those drips are going down, I'm going to add some airbrush medium. Now, I know I'm going to get a ton of questions about this, so let me try to clear it up before I even get started. I put the airbrush medium on because I wanted to keep those drips from the charcoal, but I wanted to set them. That way, if I go over them later with my hands or more wet paint, they won't smear as much as they do right now. Like, I love where they are right now. Now, when the medium dries, it sets the charcoal underneath it. Now, I could have used almost any other medium, but to get that really drippy charcoal look, it's either going to be water or airbrush medium. Now the green I'm using is also a fluorescent, and it's from Nova Color Acrylics. And I've had this jar for about 2.5 or 3 years now, and it's starting to get really thick and gummy. So I decided to use it today because it's just going to go in the background, and if it doesn't behave, no harm, no foul, I can go over it later. But I don't want to waste it. And since the majority of this background will be covered as the project develops, there's really no fear of doing anything wrong here. And this product is super exciting for me. It's called Nova Flex, and I'm using it for the very first time today. It has the consistency of like a soft gloss gel. Now, I don't know if it's going to dry glossy, we'll see, but it's a heavier consistency medium that dries crystal clear when no paint is added to it. So I'm putting it on the canvas without any color right now, just to give the charcoal and the colors below some clear protection and maybe some texture. Now the brayer caught a little of that charcoal and smeared it around, and I'm okay with that. Just know that while these mediums are wet on top of charcoal, they are going to smear unless they're fully dry. All right, so just know that. Now, I free-handed some titanium white to break up some of the color blobs and work it into the wet colors to create more of a dynamic range, because these are fluid acrylics and they roll out really thin with brayer and they shape-shift colors, and I love that. Now, it's not a lot of in-your-face color. If I keep working it, it gets thinner and more dreamy. So what looks really bold right now may be calmed down by this. I actually love this quality in fluid acrylics. You get this almost watercolor-like translucency, but with the staying power of acrylic. It lets everything underneath breathe and show through, which is exactly what I want here. Now I'm going to go back in with more of that flex medium. So far, I haven't mixed it with any colors. I'm putting it down as a layer of heavier medium so that when I eventually add color, it holds it a little separate from the canvas surface. Optically, that creates even more depth. Think of it as building a window, and each layer that you add is like another pane of glass. Light passes through them all, and what you get is this incredible luminosity that you just can't achieve with a single flat layer of paint. This is the stuff that keeps me awake at night. I love it. So that's what I'm going for here. And now I'm putting some fluorescent pink into that wet flex medium. It's creating the most gorgeous see-through pink, almost like a blush, even while the fluorescent is still at full strength. It's just I only used a little with a lot of flex medium. I think the really important thing to understand here is that what I'm doing isn't rocket science. I'm literally just playing right now. I won't feel bad if I have to cover this whole thing up later because I don't like where it went. I'm seeing how far I can spread these paints and what colors I can create together. For instance, that salmon color I just made, that's fluorescent pink mixed with fluorescent green. Who would have guessed that? This is exploring in the absolute most fun way, and that's really what I want you to take away from watching this. Color mixing doesn't have to be scientific. You don't have to know ahead of time what you're going to get. The surprise is where it's at. Now, some of the most exciting things happen when you just put two colors next to each other and see what the universe does with them. Am I right? All right, the salmon wasn't planned, it just showed up, and now I know something I didn't know before I started today. Some of this I absolutely love, like the drip of charcoal to the left of that pink area. But if for some reason that disappears while I'm building the background for the oyster, and I should have mentioned this earlier, all of this is just background for the collaged oyster. I know how I did it, and I wrote it down in my art journal so I can recreate those marks later. I just love the visual texture that's building up and the diversity of shape, form, and color that's here on the canvas. The colors I'm using today are fluorescent pink, fluorescent green, enthroned blue, and titanium white. Everything you're seeing built on this canvas today comes from those four colors, and that's it. I used light phthalo blue and Payne's gray and some Titan buff for the original background, which you can still see spots of here. Even with this incredibly limited palette, I think there's lots of exciting texture and visual interest happening. It's a really good reminder that more colors don't necessarily mean more interest. Constraint can actually be incredibly freeing, and it forces me into finding variety through value and texture and layering rather than just reaching for another tube of paint. And it feels amazing to be able to do this and be using my arms and my body in such a big way. I used to do custom finishes in homes, and I spent my days doing big sweeping movements with trowels and palette knives and brushes. And using this palette knife to create texture like this is like a homecoming for me. There's something about working at this scale that gets me out of my head and into my body. I'm not overthinking because my arm is already moving, like things are in motion, and I could stop them if I want, but I'm so curious. I just want to see where it's going. And I think that's one of the most underrated benefits of working large. It's so much harder to be precious about what you're doing. Now, I'm not going to lie, working on a piece this large is also a great workout. My body definitely felt it the next day, but I can see now that I am getting a little slower in my movements and not letting myself be quite as free. That could be because I'm getting closer to the stopping point, or it could just be that I'm getting tired, and that's okay. Even though this is a short video, in real time, this was about an hour and a half of me just going for it, just getting the paint out there and moving. And I also spent quite a bit of that time standing back and observing and deciding where to put more color or whether to leave things just the way that they are. The standing part, I think, is also really underestimated. It's not wasted time. It's actually where a lot of the problem solving happens and where you can connect more deeply with what's happening from your hands onto the canvas. I love what just happened with that pink, and I'm going to smooth it out a little bit more with my Catalyst wedge. I don't think a lot of this pink will show through once I start collaging the oyster, but I want there to be continuity and contrast between the background and the subject. Okay, I'm feeling close to a stopping point for today. All this paint and medium is still wet, and I want it to dry so I can really see where I'm at, both color-wise and texture-wise. Since this canvas is unstretched and just stapled to my wall, I also need to be careful not to go too heavy on the edges. Eventually, the canvas is going to have to be wrapped around the frame, and it can't be too stiff. So I'm feeling really good about the edging. There are just a couple more spots I want to add a little more zhuzhing before I call it done. I want to go back to the art journals just for a second because I think it's really important. Writing things down in your art journal isn't about keeping records so much. It's about building trust with yourself. When you document what you did, you stop being afraid of losing a happy accident. You know that you can find your way back to it again if it's written down somewhere. That freedom changes how you work. You take more risks because the stakes feel so much lower. I love my art journals, and I find that they really are where the best stuff happens. I'll save that for another video. I hope you're enjoying watching this piece come together. This is an ongoing series, so if you're enjoying it, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications so you can get notified when the next video drops. I'll see you next time, and this is what I would watch next.